1045 The Team, your home for New York sports. Join us right now, fantasy football addict insider for CBS Sports, Dave Richard. Dave, we're getting ready for all our fantasy drafts. I'm one of those guys that go in, I've got notes, I've got plans, I've got everything. Then I get on the clock and my brain fries. Is there a cardinal rule I should keep in mind for when I'm drafting?
Well, don't let your brain fry. Be cool about it. It's fantasy football. This is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be, the SAT or something like that. Give me a break. No, have a plan in mind, but you don't have to stick to it. And things change very quickly in fantasy drafts. Someone might get nuts and draft Rob Gronkowski in round 1, and they just have to have Gronk on their team. Well, that's going to mean somebody falls to you in round 2. Go ahead and take advantage of that. Don't let a good player pass you by. Don't let a good value pass you by. That's just something that makes sense and should be a part of every fantasy strategy.
It seems like a lot of people in this 2018 draft that they want to wait on quarterbacks. Are you following that same thing and waiting on quarterbacks in your drafts?
Yeah, you want to feel like you're a bank robber and you're stealing a quarterback from the rest of your league. And if you don't have that feeling of getting just an amazing, ridiculous value at quarterback, then you're missing the point, and you're probably at a spot in the draft where you shouldn't take a quarterback. I can give you 2 examples. Aaron Rodgers, clear-cut number 1 fantasy quarterback. The guy's a stud. People are taking him in round 2, round 3. That's too early. But if you're finding him in round 4 or round 5, that's a steal. That guy, you know what he can do. I don't have to go on him. And then you're talking about other quarterbacks that have some great upside. Carson Wentz, Patrick Mahomes, just to name 2. Wentz, we don't know if he's going to be ready for week 1. Mahomes is throwing interceptions all over the place. But the upside that these 2 guys carry are huge. And if you can get that in round 9, round 10, are you kidding me? Why would you pass that up? That's stealing. It's ripping off the rest of your league. So you have to have that feeling when it comes to drafting a quarterback this year.
Dave Richard with us right now, 1045 The Team, fantasy football insider for CBS Sports. So Dave, the conventional wisdom is like the top 5 picks are all running backs. Are you subscribing to that?
It depends on league format. You can get Antonio Brown in there, especially if it's a PPR league. He's just been so dang consistent throughout his career, and you know that fantasy owners have come to love him for all the big numbers that he puts up. So you put him in the mix along with those other top 4, top 5 type of fantasy running backs, and that's what you're going to get on the top of most drafts.
We are here in the Albany area, the capital region. There's a lot of New York Giant fans. What type of season do you believe Quon Berkeley can have fantasy football-wise?
Oh, I am over the moon for Saquon. I think that he already looks like and feels like one of those great fantasy running backs that can get you big points every week, and we've seen the track record of it from the past couple of years. We've had a number 1 rookie back, the first guy taken in the draft, go out and put up huge numbers. Gurley did it, Zeke did it, Leonard Fournette did it, and I think Saquon, there's an argument to be made that he's the most talented of that foursome, and he's with the Giants. There isn't a down or distance that he can't play in. He's going to get a lot of work, certainly going to work at the goal line. Is he not a candidate for 1,500 total yards and 10-plus touchdowns? I think he is, and that's why I'm taking him in that top 5, top 6 range. Non-PPR, I'll take him ahead of Antonio Brown. I'll put him behind Antonio Brown in full point per reception leagues, but I think the sky's the limit for him, and by this time next year, we're going to be saying it again. Saquon Barkley is a first-round pick.
Dave, does Saquon Barkley help or hurt Odell Beckham Jr.'s fantasy?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because in some thought theories, it's, Saquon Barkley is going to be there and the Giants are going to run the ball more. That means fewer targets for Odell Beckham. But I also think that play action is going to be a huge factor for the Giants. And now that means that it's going to be Eli taking the handoff to Saquon, dropping back to throw, and finding Odell downfield. So this is something that can really work both ways. And I would imagine that Odell will still have a good season, probably along the lines of 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns. There aren't going to be a lot of wide receivers that do better than that. So to me, Saquon is not going to hold back Odell very much. Hopefully Odell stays healthy. He's got to prove that after what happened last year.
Would Buffalo Bill running back LeSean McCoy be on the list of guys you'd want to avoid in drafts?
Absolutely. 3/5 of his offensive line is new this year. I went to see them in person last week, and the Bills' O-line was terrible. They couldn't make any room for LeSean to run between the tackles. It's going to be bad for the passing game, too, because they can't protect the quarterback. LeSean McCoy has over 2,500 career touches. He's over the age of 30. All signs point to him breaking down sooner or later. I'd rather miss on him this year and still see him have an okay season and say, okay, well, we know that that's not going to happen next year. The arrow is pointing down on LeSean and on the Bills in general. Not very excited about them from a fantasy football perspective. I know that his ADP right now, people are taking him about 23rd, 24th overall. I would wait at least a full round before looking into LeSean McCoy, and chances are someone's going to draft him before then in my leagues. So I'm not going to have him on many of my teams.
Along with LeSean McCoy, any other guys who'd say stay away from them this draft?
I'm worried about Mark Ingram returning value based on where people are drafting him. They're getting him in round 4 and round 5, and you're not going to have him for 5 of the first 6 weeks of the season, and there's no guarantee what his role is going to be from week 7 on, and it's a tough schedule when he really does come back for the New Orleans Saints. We know that Alvin Kamara is going to be a prized target in fantasy, and certainly for the Saints, they're going to use him similarly to last year. That's definitely one player that I am just nervous about drafting. And another one is Julian Edelman. Coming again, a situation where he's suspended for the first 4 games. He's coming off of a torn ACL. He admitted that he wasn't in the best shape. I don't think he's going to give you 1,000 yards this year. He's given you more than 6 touchdowns once in his career. I just think that if you're in a non-PPR league, you're wasting a pick on Julian Edelman, unless it's round 9 or later.
Dave Richard with us right now, 104.5 Team. So, Dave, we're a Jets affiliate. Now, here's probably the hardest question I got for you. What Jet players would you be focused on in fantasy, if any?
That is a tough question, but let me start off by saying this. I was impressed with Sam Darnold from what I've seen in the preseason, and I've been more impressed by Teddy Bridgewater. So between the two of those guys, I think the Jets are going to be okay at quarterback, somewhere between okay and good at quarterback. They just have to have an offensive line that can protect them. Isaiah Crowell is their new lead back. It looks like they want to use him in passing situations as well. It's hard to pass up a running back that's going to have a potential for 20 touches a week, but 20 touches a week in this Jets offense might not be so great, especially with some relative inexperience at quarterback, depending on whether it's Bridgewater or Sam Darnold. You know, Teddy just hasn't played in a year. I'm not sure just how comfortable he truly is at this point. And then you've got Robbie Anderson on the outside. Very much a boomer bust type of fantasy wide receiver, somebody who 1 week can give you 100 yards and a touchdown, the next week give you 2 catches for 15 yards, and you're not going to know what to do with him from week to week. I would consider him a number 3 fantasy receiver, somebody that even if you're only starting 2, maybe he's on your bench to begin the year, maybe he's in your flex spot if you like the matchup. And if you're starting 3 or more receivers, then you put him in there, and you hope that more weeks than not he gives you some good numbers. That's really about it. I know that there's some intrigue with the tight ends there. I'm not buying into it. I'm not buying into Bilal Powell. I don't think Trenton Cannon can do anything great. And as far as the quarterbacks go, I'm not ready to put them on my fantasy roster either.
There are some people who get very superstitious when it comes to fantasy drafts, whether it's a lucky jersey, a lucky shirt, a drink of choice. Is there something that Dave Richard does every fantasy draft that believes that's going to give him the personal edge in a draft?
You know what I do at every single draft, guys? I bring my laptop with me. I bring my rankings with me. I tier players before the draft. I bring all that with me, and I bring an NFL schedule with me just to make sure that I don't pick too many guys on the same bye week. Certainly at quarterback, you don't want to do that. I'm just prepared. And if I go into anything in life, but certainly a fantasy draft without being prepared, I know I'm losing already. So looking at, you can't just like say, oh, today's my draft day, and you run to the grocery store and you buy a magazine and then you head to your draft and you sit down and you go. Put some thought into it, give it a little bit of time, and then bring those thoughts with you to draft day so you're not feeling unprepared.
Dave, can I call you in the middle of my draft if I'm freaking out? Because you are a calming influence,
no
my
problem.
friend. Dave, man, we appreciate you. You're great. We're going to pick your brain as much as possible if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. Anytime you want.
Dave Richard, CBS Sports Fantasy Football Insider, and I feel like I've learned more in the last couple minutes than Gaz has taught me about fantasy football in 3 years. So, Dave, man, we appreciate you.
You got it, guys. Be good and good luck in your drafts this year.